All right, I'm back for Dust2S's ongoing coverage of Fragadelphia CS2, and I'm here with a late night interview with NoVa coming off of their 2-0 win over Artemis. So to start, of course, I want to ask you about that match. It really went the distance against a team I don't think many would have expected to go that deep. What are your thoughts and feelings coming out of that series?
I definitely think that it was a very interesting set of circumstances, considering that we had to run to a different land center in the middle of the game, come back after a couple hours. We're very fortunate that the other team was willing to work with us, but I think at that point it was really just a resilience battle, like who can come in out of these like really crazy circumstances and like come out on top. And I think our team is very used to doing that. We have a lot of experience doing that in playoffs, but those guys are very good as well. I've been to land with Control a couple times, and he's a great caller and a great player, and that whole team in general is just really solid. So I'm not so surprised that they managed to push it close, especially considering the circumstances of the day.
Now, with the circumstances of the day, you did mention you had to run all the way over to the block to play your advanced match. So I think if my calculations are correct, that means you played upwards of you played three BO3s today. How are you feeling? Are you guys exhausted?
I personally am gassed. We all woke up at 5:45 because we were super excited to play, and that was an interesting decision because by now we've been up for so many hours. It's definitely nothing like new. We're used to playing a lot. Advanced playoffs is a gauntlet, but fortunately, like that training kind of put us in a position where we were able to just push through, like get that energy going, even after losing in playoffs, and carry it over to this land, and just fully shift our focus to this.
Now, you mentioned having to run over to the block to play your ESA advanced match. I heard through the grapevine that you guys had some troubles over there. What happened with the equipment over there for your guys' match?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think just there was like PC crash, and then we would move to a different setup, and then someone else's PC would crash, and then we moved to a different setup, and then there was a problem with the native resolution. Everyone had to play native no matter what, and half of my team plays like different reses, so that was already uncomfortable. There was a lot of issues with like G Hub, like Logitech G Hub. One of our players couldn't do something with that, so it definitely just like was like every time we thought something was fixed, another thing would be broken. But luckily, the team like kept it together, like mentally and stuff. Just very hard to play like in those circumstances. But we're also grateful to the block in general, just for being open, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to play at all.
Now, like you said, your ESA advanced run ultimately came to an end by falling a loss to Zomblers. But what was the experience like of sort of being able to play ESA advanced playoffs in a LAN setting?
It was very interesting, especially because four of us were here and one of us was online because we have a sub for the event in Luke 4K. So Cool Comms was, posting up from South Carolina, and just a very interesting dynamic, I guess, with four of us in person and him online. I remembered after we lost first map, we all rallied up together to start talking, and then I was like, wait a minute, Connor's still on the PC. We got to go include him somehow. So there's definitely a level of like distance that felt a little bit weird, but the vibes and the energy was fantastic. It's the best that it's ever been during this whole season, and I think that even though we lost, I think that a lot of that was circumstantial, and a lot of that was, Zomblers is a good team. We've beaten them before, they've beaten us now, so it's, a good matchup. But it was definitely unique, for sure. I think I would maybe not do it again in such an important match, but, it was fun.
But how would you rate your advanced playoff run overall?
I mean, we came into this just as a roster thrown together in the last 3 days before the season started, with players that all of us have never even played advanced playoffs, other than Fruit Cup, who played one season a long time ago. This was Fire's first season of advanced in general, so that's crazy. Josu's first season IGLing, my first season back in advanced after a long time of being away in Maine and grinding back up. So just across the board, really, I'm shocked that we managed to pull together such a run. But it speaks to like the work ethic that we've had. We never took breaks throughout the whole season. We practiced daily. We even through like the rough turmoil and like problems that we every team goes through, we managed to pick ourselves back up. And I think we really kind of made a bit of a statement, beating both the 1 seed and the 2 seed. Because I think otherwise you'd be able to call it maybe a fluke of a run, or looking at the names on our team, I know even just speaking for me personally, I definitely don't carry the most weight with my name nowadays, but hopefully this run helps to change that a little bit. And I know it definitely helped to change our own opinions internally about ourselves. I think there was a certain point where a couple of us in the scene were, started to listen to the voices that were saying you can't rather than the friends that know you can. And I think making that switch mentally after these playoffs is going to propel us even further in the future.
You mentioned Josu in his first season as an IGL. I don't think a lot of people really know about him. How would you sort of define his characteristics as a leader in the server?
I mean, he's risen to the occasion fantastically. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell it was his first season at all. He takes criticism really well. I could not ask for a better leader, and that's saying something coming from my favorite in-game leader ever with MJB on Darkest Hour. Josu is playing like a pedigree IGL with limited experience, so I just can't wait to see where he goes from here. We all have the optimism and the drive, and I think, speaking separately, there's a lot that's been going on outside in the real world to affect, our drive for the game even further. And I think we all are just pouring our hearts into it. And with a leader like that, I really think we can take it far.
And I think another person we're shouting out from this series tonight was Fire, who had especially very good performance on Overpass. What can you tell me about him?
The evolution that I've seen in Fire from the start of the season to the end of the season is honestly baffling, because I came into this team and literally the first day there were questions about whether he was even going to play. Not because he didn't want to, but just internal stuff going on. And the point that he, came from as someone who honestly let his emotions get to him a little bit, wasn't always the most mentally strong player. At some point in the middle of the season, he flipped a switch, and all of a sudden, he was the most energetic, most positive, always kept a strong mental. He had a game in playoffs where he literally just had 50 kills just because against the Alphabet team, Jaws, V2. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't pronounce that. But it just, I don't know, it speaks to his ability as a player to understand the holes that needed to be filled and fill them perfectly.
Now, last question before I let you guys head to bed. If memory serves me correctly, the first time we ever wrote about you was back in 2019 when you were struggling with, I believe you were a main player or an intermediate player at the time, and you're struggling with homelessness at the time in between houses, and you end up being kicked from the team you were on. With all of that in mind, your career in totality, how do you feel about your trajectory as a player since going from being homeless now to where you are now?
I think the dedication was always there. I think it took, certain players really taking a chance on me as an individual. I started, around as young as you realistically can in this scene at like 12 or 13 going to LANs, and I just never found that kind of mentor player to kind of, guide me through that a lot of the players nowadays, the young players, have had the privilege of having. And it took until, my 20th season of ESCA to find someone that would be willing to take me under their wing. And, rather than dreading over the lost time, it just carried me forward even further. The passion that I have for this game, I think, is truly unrivaled in the scene. It's all I think about. It's all I want to do. And it's just amazing to finally see those results starting to pay off, because, like I mentioned before, it's really, really easy to listen to the negative voices and the negative people in the community, which, I honestly like being friends with everyone. When I come to these lands, I'm running around socializing, saying hi to everyone because I love this community. But obviously there are, opinions. Everyone has one. But as long as you are able to kind of tune into your own and your friends and those that, care for you, I think you're able to get a lot more work done. And like I said before, I think this LAN and the online season that we've had really help me personally to change that, and I think we'll be seeing like a new level of NoVa coming forward.
Well, and I guess before I let you go, we've talked about the fact that at this LAN compared to previous FRAG LANs where we've had like a super team like Elevate basically be an insurmountable challenge, we have a lot more teams, lower level ECL teams, upper level advanced teams, so the field is pretty even here.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Snakes then has the tools to win the event when you guys are back in action on Sunday?
I do. I think the work that we put in, like I said before, we put in just as much work, if not more, as any other team here. We're coming off, hot off the heels of an amazing playoffs run. The vibe is really good. Even with our sub, Luke 4K is fitting in like a charm. And, we've beaten half the teams here. The only team we don't really have like a head-to-head against is Lag. And, they're a great team. They're at ECL. They're the 1 seed for a reason. But I like our chances, honestly. I would not be surprised to see Snakes Den on top at the end of this LAN.
All right, so that's NoVa from Snakes Den. We will see them back in action on Sunday, so be sure to check them out then. Thank you so much for your time, NoVa, and done.